Yeah, I'd say, three tips come to mind just as immediate next steps of things that you can do now. First and foremost, Google your name. Like we talked about earlier, we call this just a basic online brand audit. And what you want to do is look at the top 5 search results that come up under your name. Your goal is to have ultimately media that you control, like your personal website, social media channels, thought leadership articles, in those top 5 links. Now, another thing to look at is if the results point back to you. There are some physicians with very common names. And the truth is that they will never own their first impression, especially if they have it in common with a celebrity. So if this is you, think about shifting your brand name. And really all that means is potentially adding a middle initial or a middle name to all of your online entities. What this does is help differentiate yourself. So when someone Googles you, you can actually own all of those results. Now, another thing with Googling your name, really look and see, do you own your URL? And this is like owning a piece of real estate and is one of the most powerful digital platforms that you can own these days. I'd recommend going to GoDaddy or name.com. It's typically cost $11 if no one has your name. And you can just use first name, last name, in your credentials, whether that's MD or PhD at buythe.com. This will help you show up in direct search results and will leave a very specific impression with whomever is searching. And if you can't build your website yet, still go ahead and buy the URL so that you have it until you're ready to start building. And if you need to wait a while before you start building your website, focus on optimizing your LinkedIn profile because that's the second best place that can be your home base. LinkedIn is a top ranked website within Google's algorithms. So it shows up on top of page 1 Google, but it also has enough content to validate your authority and credentials, which is really key. Now, the second thing that you can start doing when you start building your platform, remember that the content that you put out doesn't have to be all on you. So when it comes to putting out content, whether it's social media or your blog, start thinking of it as if you were an editor of a newspaper. And when you think about newspapers, it includes various types of content from current events to interviews to information and research, as well as opinion pieces. And so jump into social media and your blog by sharing content in thirds. So there's 3 buckets that I want you to focus on. First is aiming for sharing news-driven content. So this is, headline-driven content, maybe new breaking research that is coming up that you have an opinion on. The next bucket of content is relationship building. So there's those interviews that we were talking about, just like we're doing right now. It's focusing on shining that spotlight on others and involving others in your content as much as possible, because that's absolutely valuable to your audience to hear from other experts. And then lastly, save 1/3 of it for you. And that those are those opinion pieces where you're sharing your expertise. But just remember that last category doesn't have to make up your content. It can be sparsed out between news-driven content as well as relationship-driven content. Now, the last tip I have is making Google your publicist. So set up Google Alerts. It's really easy to do. You can put in 3 to 5 keywords in your topic area, and each morning Google will email you those search results. So to share with you the latest news articles based on those keywords that you've put in. And you can review these stories from media outlets and really consider how you can add to the discussion. This is a great way to find articles that you can share on Twitter while also adding your perspective. The key, if you're putting that on Twitter, is tagging the journalist or the author who wrote the article. You can also share this type of content that you find on your blog posts, giving your perspective on recent research or breaking news, as well as LinkedIn. Really make sure that you use these keywords because they're important to your work. And high value press, as we all know, is the quickest way to build credibility and authority. But high value press is more of just that mass media. One piece of encouragement I want to give physicians is in today's media landscape, it's micro media that really reigns. And micro media includes online only publications, podcasts, email newsletters, and blogs. So really look at, are there specific newsletters or podcasts that are focused on their area of expertise? And really look at these channels and pitch yourself to these channels to start building credibility. A lot of these micro media outlets have a really loyal following that also has a high, level of trust with their following. With mass media, those are great credentialing points to have, but people have to spend a lot of time scrolling, and they have to spend a lot of time, digging into an hour's worth of content to only get a fraction of what they want. And so really focus on what are those right micro media channels that you can be a part of that are going to be valuable to that audience. I think that the biggest thing is just, again, when you start out with content marketing or you start out with personal branding, the big thing is, how do you involve others in your content? And whether that's through an interview series or whether that's through writing about a piece about new breaking research that one of your peers have done, that's the most exciting thing is deciding, how can I make a bigger impact and how can I involve others as much as possible.